Questions about a contracted heart. So I'm just testing this out here because I want to show you something. Contracted heart. First thing to remember, like with this work, is that we don't treat the heart as anything special. It's not different or better or worse than any other contraction. It's just where energy gets stored for certain people more than others. Some people come and the heart contraction is not the issue, it's stomach or throat or all of it. But since I keep getting the question, it's a good way to talk about and demonstrate somatic based inquiry. Here, the Killaby inquiries. I'm going to use my camera a little bit creatively to show you something. The first thing is, as I hone in on my um, heart area here, don't be deceived. That is not just a sensation. It feels like that's contracted area or dense area or closed, something like that. The first deception is to think that that's just a sensation. So I'm using my camera like this to show you how we get fooled. We get fooled into thinking the mind and the body are cut off from each other. And this is why people's hearts continue to remain contracted. One of the reasons is we've been conditioned to believe that we can deal with the body on the body level only. So this is why I'm showing you this, as if we can isolate this contraction from what we think. I'm just designating this as what we think is connected, absolutely connected to the contracted heart. So there's a lot of good practices around heart meditation, for example. So heart meditation would be like not thinking, not even doing inquiry really, just resting attention in the heart area throughout the day, finding a still point in there and just softly resting attention there, which can help. Just bringing awareness to something can help. In fact, if you can do that, I did that for a long time on the path, just resting attention there. And what happened is the contraction got stronger and stronger and stronger because I didn't have any inquiry. And it just exploded and opened um, just by looking at a few things that were connected to it, just noticing a few thoughts is all. But I kept my attention in the heart area for really like weeks. I didn't have inquiry though. So people are trying these heart meditations, and a lot of time they're not experiencing that opening in that area. And I think now I know why that is because of the mind body connection. So back to the mind. You have to consult the mind and body from awareness to get at the root of this. So when you go down, I'm going to keep moving my camera just to make the point. When you come down and to feel this, if you're already assuming that there's no thoughts connected to that, if you think you can just rest with that and there is no mind body connection, you may be setting yourself up for continued contraction. Like it's not going to dissolve. You're not going to see through that. Feeling into that though, and then pulling up with this question: who or what is this about? Could be about you, could be about your spouse, could be about something else, but pull it up. So let's say I don't have a contraction here. I'm just going to work through this from memory. Okay. So who or what is this about? Let's just say it's about my husband. All right. Now we have thoughts. Husband. See mind body connection. So we don't want to treat that as just a sensation. Now it's apparently connected to my husband, so I'm going to bring my husband up there. Now, the thing is, this is why you can't really show people how to do the exact inquiry that they need because it's based on the conditioning that they have already. So we have to discover what you're believing first before we can go into inquiry because everybody believes something different in a way that gets connected to the heart. But your first foray into this is who or what is this about? And then somebody or something will come up. You may have to just follow me and then apply this to your own experience because my content, just for demonstration purposes, will most likely be different than yours. But here I've got the who, my husband. And so I might ask them, what am I believing about him or about this relationship or even about me? What am I believing here that seems connected to this sensation? I'm consulting what the mind believes here, not the feeling right now. I'm just feeling into the feeling and looking at husband and asking, what am I believing? So maybe what comes up is he doesn't love me or I'm not wanted. Some kind of relationship type juicy content. That's really what you're looking for normally. Could be something else, but a lot of it is relationship stuff like unlovable, not wanted, not worthy, not good enough. Feeling like you don't match up in relationships, you're not enough. Whatever it is, find out what you're believing. So let's say what comes up is he doesn't want me. I'm unwanted. Now you can follow that thread. So feeling into the sensation, looking at him or whoever it is, I'm wanted. No, no, I'm not. He wants other things and people. I'm not good enough for him. But resting with each thought one at a time, right? As it's connected to this heart area, one at a time, because these thoughts are important to this sensation, right? This is what's believed that's connected to this sensation. So we're making this conscious. Remember, before that, all you had was the contracted heart. And then when you ask the question, you realize the contracted heart is connected to the husband or to somebody, and there's a belief there. He doesn't want me. So we have to stay here in this belief that he doesn't want me, inquiring into that to make some headway down here because of the mind body connection. So he doesn't, or he wants me. No, he doesn't. Watching each thought fall away. Take your time with this because in the falling away of the thought, there can be somatic shifting because of that mind body connection. In other words, chunks of it or aspects of it can fall away if you allow each thought to come and go into the space. Rest as the space between thoughts. Repeat the inquiry. He wants me. Listen to the persistence of the story that says no. It's almost like it demands to believe this. And so you bring awareness to that demand, to that persistent series of thoughts one at a time, letting them be as they are. And then feeling the changes within the somatic, and then coming back down. At some point, that gets quiet, that particular line of thinking or inquiry. But don't be fooled because it doesn't mean that's all there is to it. Feel into it, even maybe a deeper part of it, a part that's even more buried or dense or further back. And repeat again, he wants me or I'm wanted. No, see, and then you may or may not start seeing earlier thoughts around earlier relationships at that point. Mom, dad, previous ones. When you see that, you want to open up to that at some point. So let's say the unwanted story, this feeling in the body, this sensation was first created or reinforced with mom and dad or someone else, and now it's being projected onto partner here. So going back to some of those original relationships, dad, there's dad, feeling into the heart. Dad, I was wanted. Dad wanted me. No, he said this. He was disappointed. He wished I was a girl, whatever. Going through that, those unconscious thoughts that are connected to that. And then mom, why would you go through all these relationships? Because that's where the heart contraction solidified itself. How would, better question is, how would you even access that if you weren't looking at those people? Because of how this stuff hides from us. So if you don't have dad up or mom up, you might say, he wants me, but you're asking in midair and the body can't sink its teeth into that. As soon as you pull dad up with that expression or dad leaving, right, or not there, he's working too much or whatever, that image activates the body, shows you what you need to see. Witness, witness, witness. The only way out is through. So witnessing through all of that, repeating, and just moving. It's like a panorama of people in your life. Just look at what's happening in your consciousness, literally. There's awareness here. And in awareness, there's the semblance of these separate relationships, you and dad, you and spouse, you and mom, you and whoever else. By moving through each of these relationships, you're picking up all that material that is unconsciously attached to these relationships and is embedded or hidden within what you're calling a contracted heart or closed heart. So When people say, "Do I have to go back to all these things?" My question is, how would you even reach that unless by some act of grace, you're just resting in the contraction and for some reason it decides to open, like an act of grace. But for a lot of people, it doesn't happen that way. It's just a contracted heart that continues. So you might want to go deeper into that, is what I'm saying. And going into these relationships where all this unconscious stuff is, pulling it up, and then not coming down to the body again, except just to, if there's a feeling that comes out. Sometimes when we're inquiring, part of the heart opening is that old energy needs to be released, sadness or anger, something, guilt. When that kind of emotion arises in inquiry, just stop inquiring and rest and let it be there, letting it just integrate into awareness, be seen and felt. But otherwise, I wouldn't be, for myself, knowing the skills that we have now, I wouldn't be coming down just to feel that all the time without inquiring. Because then, if you're just waiting for the act of grace, that's what I'm saying. With inquiry, there's skill involved. You're actually kind of getting to the root of something, not waiting for grace, which is like waiting to catch a cold. There are things that you can do. How you inquire does matter. Your skill level does matter on this. So, where that's going to take you in inquiry is going to be up to you. There's no way for me to say, this is where you need to go, and then you need to go here, because you really have to discern what it is you're believing in order to know where to go. And that's why those questions of like, who or what is this about? Or what does this mean about me? And then something comes up and discerning what the belief is and then reversing it, no matter what it is you find, to watch what comes up. So that could go in any number of directions. There's no way that I could give you a formula. If I gave you a formula, that formula might actually miss important things that you would need to see based on what you believe. Formulas don't work. Intuitively following the inquiry and seeing what you believe and reversing that and witnessing is much more effective. When you're not in inquiry, because you can't sit there and mine and inquire all day, and I'm not saying you should, but when you're not in inquiry, then it's just resting attention in the heart area, presence there, also noticing the space around the contraction, just letting it be there. And even more than that, like if you can feel the movement or the tension or the contraction in there, can your attention, your the awareness, can it actually help that? One of the worst things you can do in my book is, if you have a contracted something, is to try to open it, like try to pull it apart, because it doesn't respond very well to that, because that's resistance. You're doing something against it. But what if the contraction is just, it's like contracting inward, and instead of moving against it, your attention comes in to feel it and almost kind of helps it contract inward, then there isn't any resistance being added. So the attention and the awareness is sort of supporting the movement that already wants to happen. And then therefore when the resistance is taken away, there can be movement there. Simply because you're, for the first time, not trying to change it. That's seems maybe counterintuitive. The way I learned this is, I learned this from all the body contractions I work with, but the pain in my spine, when the pain signal was gone, there was like a pressure, and it felt like, if I were to visualize it, what I saw and felt in awareness was something like a corkscrew pulling tissue, almost like it was pulling tissue and wrapping it around a bone, like a very strong, I don't know if I had something visual, I should just wrapping something around very tightly, something. That's how it felt at the base level. There wasn't any, there weren't any thoughts connected to it at that level. So coming into it and feeling into the trajectory of the movement of the corkscrew, it wanted to go in like that. It wanted to tighten around something. So as my attention came into it, I just welcomed that, let the attention move in the direction that it wants to go in, instead of trying to bring an opposite force to it. And I literally saw the unraveling of that from there. So it's like the tightness that felt like it was twisted around something, by bringing awareness into it and supporting the movement that it already wanted to do, it would start to unhook from that because of the high level, so to speak, of acceptance there. No resistance to what it wants to do already. And every time I would bring attention that way, it just loosened more and more. And I could just see the structure dissolving and undoing itself because of the non resistance. Again, I had spent plenty of time in inquiry before that, as I've shared. You may need to do that is like pull up the thoughts that are connected to that in the way that I showed you. But at some point, when you've seen all the thoughts, and I mean, really seen them all, and there's nothing there anymore, and you know there's nothing there, including nothing repressed, no thoughts repressed, then all that you can kind of do is just be with it. And I'm just giving you a little bit of a tool to help that along. I find that this tool is more, for me, more powerful, more effective than just rest and let it be. Because resting and letting something be, there can still be a sort of unconscious resistance to its movement. I don't know how they define resistance, but it feels in the body like apparently like one force is acting against another. It feels that way. So for me, it was like the twisting around that thing, that force was already happening. And then on some unconscious level, I was trying to undo that. Like the system was like against it. And by being against it, it solidified it. So when I would rest with it, there was already the againstness on an unconscious level. So as soon as I went with it, very subtle, very nuanced, but moving attention into it, into the direction it wants to go, then it started to unravel. What can happen is you can get into a perpetual state of dissolution in that way. Like when you're relating to the phenomena that way, to a contraction where everything that it wants to do is literally welcomed. Like the awareness just, okay, so you want to contract and go this way or pull that way? Bring attention into that, help that go that way. Or if it wants to stay down, can you help it stay down with just your attention? Or even with bringing two imaginary hands to it. If you see a form or a shape there, okay, it wants to stay down, so can you have the hand just stay with it? That's what it wants to do. Hold it down or bring it down, but that's where the acceptance is kicking in. It may not seem like that, but that's giving it acceptance, no more resistance to what it wants to do. My point is as you start to relate to that contraction that way, you get into this state where it's this perpetual, even if slow, process of unraveling and undoing itself. You're in the state where you're relating to it in such a way that that can just continue to happen and continue to happen like that. I hope that helps. That's a lot of detail on the skill part of that. What I'd like to see is if you guys would just work with some of this on your own or with somebody and then come back and comment and say, yes, this helped. So thank you. Or not sure what you mean by this, Scott. And I'm really stuck. That's how we go deeper here. Feel free.